Welcome back. So we've just finished doing the posterior thigh, and now we are going to shift to the anterior thigh. And there are a lot of muscles in the anterior thigh, but at first we are only going to be focusing on the group of them known as the quadriceps muscle, which some people call the quadriceps femoris, which makes it sound like it's one muscle, but really it is 4 muscles, which are all going to share a common insertion. So please don't write quadriceps femoris down as the answer to anything. So the first muscle going straight down the middle of the anterior thigh, we're going to take that word that means straight that we had when we learned about our extraocular muscles, and that's rectus. And so this muscle called the rectus femoris goes straight down anterior to the femur. Now, if we look just lateral to it, but at the knee area, you will see like this little teardrop shaped thing, both laterally and medially. So the muscle that is lateral to the rectus femoris is called the vastus lateralis. And in a similar naming fashion, the muscle that is just medial to the rectus femoris and has this teardrop shape just above the knee area, that will be called the vastus medialis. So that's 3 of the 4 muscles. So now you're asking yourself, where's the 4th muscle? Well, the 4th muscle is not superficial. To see the 4th muscle, you actually have to go deep to the rectus femoris muscle. So what we need to do is take this muscle off the model. As you can see, it's cut here, so we clearly can do that. And that gives us our deepest muscle. So let's look at the cadaver picture first on the left, where you can see here is the muscle, it's an entirety, and what you see anteriorly is that most of the anterior surface is actually the tendinous surface of this muscle, which explains why when you take off the rectus femoris, as on the right and sitting over there on your lab bench to the right of us, here in the middle, what you're seeing is mostly that gray painted stuff, which is representing the tendon. You do not have to write tendon up, just write the name of the muscle, and the muscle name is the vastus intermedius. So the vastus intermedius is between the lateral vastus lateralis and the medial vastus medialis, but deep to the more superficial rectus femoris muscle. So let's talk for a second about their insertion. All 4 share a common insertion. And here is the insertion of all 4 of the quadriceps muscle. They share a common tendon known as the quadriceps tendon, which then inserts onto the patella. So that's dense connective tissue, dense regular connective tissue in that tendon. And then because the patella moves, that's solid insertion, so it continues in the insertion pathway. And it continues as dense regular connective tissue, only now because we're going between bone and bone, we are not going to call this a tendon, we're going to call it a ligament. So this is the patellar ligament, which then inserts onto the tibial tuberosity. So the insertion of each of the 4 quadriceps muscle has 4 parts to it. So you need to learn all 4 parts to this. So quadriceps tendon to the patella, to the patellar ligament, to the tibial tuberosity. Okay. That's it for the quadriceps muscle, but I want to go back to this picture for a second. Whoops, not this one. Yeah, I'll stay on this picture, but I don't want to talk about individual muscles. I want to talk about these muscles all together and talk about their origins and relationship to their actions. So let's start first with their insertions. Because they have the same insertion, all 4 of them are crossing the knee together. That means all 4 must have the same action at the knee. And so if they're on the anterior surface of the knee, when it contracts, it's going to make it shorter. So what they're going to do is extend the knee. So hopefully that's intuitive and everybody understands that. Then what you need to realize is the origin of the rectus femoris is different. than the other three muscles. All three of the vastus muscles, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, and vastus medialis, their origins are just on the femur. So their only action is on the knee. But the rectus femoris muscle, I don't know if you can see, do you see it's coming from way up here? Because its origin is on the iliac. So it and it alone of the four quadriceps muscle has an action at the hip. And the action at the hip is going to be hip flexion, because remember, moving the thigh anteriorly is hip flexion. So rectus femoris, hip flexion, knee extension. All three of the vastus muscles, only knee extension. And with that, we are done with the quadriceps, and I will see you shortly for the last slide. Yeah, I think there's only one. The rest of the anterior muscles of the thigh.